Well, this is your host, Scott Roos, speaking at you from the majestic shores of the North Saskatchewan River right here in scenic Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, for Down to the River radio show. And today, of course, an interview that's probably been a few months in the making, at least. Rachel Talbott, singer, songwriter, lifestyle. What would the word be? Lifestyle presenter, activist? I'm not
I
sure.
I guess yeah, I don't know what the right wording is for it, but I guess I just share my life on, via video on social media.
That's right.
So
So,
yeah.
so how did you get into the whole YouTube thing?
Yeah, so music's always been in my family. So my dad's a musician. I grew up with
Right.
music. But I was definitely, when it's as a young kid, I was doing acting, singing, session work and stuff for Disney, but the work wasn't super, super consistent. Like I worked, but I wanted to always find other interests and other things. So I started working in the skincare industry and in the beauty industry when I was in college and in my early 20s, and started two different channels on YouTube. I started sharing my music, and then at the same time, I was sharing basically what I was doing at my job. Here are 5 tips to taking care of your skin. And it started in my early 20s. All I was really focusing on, truthfully, was just kind of like myself and my job and my career. And I was married with my husband, but we were living in a tiny little apartment. He was working crazy hours as a chef. So I was kind of, doing my own thing for the most part. And YouTube was just another avenue for me to kind of connect, I guess, and also and share. And over time it grew. And then, I had an audience that grew with me as I got pregnant, had kids, bought my first house. It really became, people kind of grew up. We all grew up together, really, because we all really liked makeup and skin. And then as I slowly transitioned to the life that I live now, which is actually very different from who I was in my early 20s, everybody kind of followed along, and it just continued to grow. And then music was always a part of that as well. So
Yeah,
it
for
was just
sure.
a combination. And yeah, YouTube, at the time that I started, it was before it was super big. It was just starting to kind of boom. And I was sharing what was going on in my life,
So yeah, I mean, you got in on the ground floor before thousands upon thousands of people kind of started doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I was getting started. I was, again, kind of following the crowd to an extent, because at that time, the beauty and lifestyle videos, more than even lifestyle, the beauty videos were kind of what were booming at the time. And I happened to be working in that industry.
Right.
And so it just kind of made sense at that time. And yeah, and things have definitely shifted. My life is very different from that time, but my content's changed as well. But all along, it's really been about sharing where I was at in my life at the moment. And
Yeah, for sure.
so it's really no different now, but yeah.
Now, you mentioned your dad was in the music industry. Your dad was Warren Ham, who you posted a video of him actually singing with Cher. It looks like it's 70s ish. On your social media the other day, which led me to think that he was maybe a vocalist and maybe had some dance training. But when I delved a little deeper, your dad was actually a professional saxophone and reed player.
Yeah. So he plays several instruments, actually. Sax, harmonica, flute, keyboard, vocals. He's right now, now everything's kind of on hold, but he tours with Ringo and Toto. So he's in Ringo's all-star band, and he has a solo in every song. That pretty much in the show. And we go to see it every year at the Greek in the summer, because they come to the Greek in California. And it's kind of funny, because every song he has some type of solo, but he's always whipping out a new instrument. And everybody's always like, who's this guy? Like, he's got the solo with the harmonica, and then the next song he's got a solo on sax, and the next song he's singing lead vocals for the Toto song. Like, he sings Hold the Line, and just all around really, really stellar musician. And I grew up on the inside of that, which is watching him practice every single day, listening to him grow as a musician, listening to him flub on the saxophone over and over again until he nailed it and got it right.
Yeah.
So I saw that side of it, which was incredibly inspiring. And I also saw the struggle of like, hey, I have, 4 months on tour with Olivia Newton-John, but I don't really have work after that. That was his full-time gig, being a musician, making a living doing that. So we were actually struggling as a family.
Uh-huh.
And to see him where he's at now, with the gigs he has now and the stability he has as a musician has been really inspiring. But it's a tough life, and that road life and everything that goes on. And
it's definitely not for everyone. Well, just as you were, describing this a little bit to me, I couldn't help but think now, like, with my own dad, for instance, early on in my life when I was very small, he was a professional chef. And I can recall, taking a little bit interest in the culinary arts early on. And then basically he was like, don't do it. I mean, given the fact that you ended up in the music industry yourself, I mean, what kind of advice did your dad give you, and did he try to dissuade you in any way, shape, or form?
Funny enough, yes, he absolutely did. I'll never forget. It was actually like a year and a half ago, as I've always wanted to make music. Like I said, when I was younger, I worked with Disney. I worked for Disney, and I did some acting stuff, and then that transferred to some session work, and then I eventually went on to do background stuff for, like, I did backgrounds on Britney Spears' Femme Fatale album. I think I was like 19 when I did that.
Wow.
So I was doing it a little bit here and there. But to be honest, they were always a little frightened by it, because I'd get into some type of situation, opportunity that looked like it could pan out to a record deal. And it would be a little bit like the songs were a little more promiscuous, and it never was the right fit. So for me, I always had plan B, if you will. Like, I always just thought, I need to have something else that I'm good at and be a well-rounded person, if you will. So we were in the car a year or so ago, and he goes, "Why would you ever want to be a musician? Like, haven't you seen how much I've struggled?" And I said, what? I'm approaching it very differently. Times are very different now too than they were when he was coming up, if you will, in the music industry, where really, for the most part, I'm 32 now, and I really started to take it seriously because I had to develop as an artist. And when I say take it seriously, meaning I'm consistently putting out music. I feel like I have an understanding of who I am as an artist, and I'm moving forward in that direction rather than having an outsider tell me, "Oh, this is who you are." For a really long time, people would kind of go, "Oh, you're the next Ariana Grande." And I'm like, really? Like, okay. Or and it really took me, starting to play instruments, starting to write, really coming from an authentic place to go, no, this is actually who I am as an artist. I'm going to present that myself, and I'm going to put my stuff on Spotify, and I'm going to be in charge of how I put myself out to the world, just like I am with my content. And then that will grow over time, and then I will develop as an artist, and as I do this for the rest of my life. So my approach in some ways was kind of different than my dad, because I don't really feel like I'm trying to make it. I'm just trying to make music and create and art in different forms and put that out there in the most authentic way. And whoever that resonates with, great, but I'm not really coming from that place that I think so many people have. And it took me a while to get there, to be honest, but I'm happy to be there now, because then everything comes from a really true place. And that's why I love country music. And I'm just happy with the place that I'm at right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. In what you just said, but I mean, backing up to the conversation about your dad, though, I mean, despite the fact that he might have tried to dissuade you, you are, trained to, I think you're a trained piano player. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, I played a little bit of piano my whole life, but to be honest, I didn't start taking it seriously until about 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really have an instrument in my house. And I got married really young. I was working, and one day I just kind of woke up and realized, I'm kind of sad. I don't have any instruments in my house, and I went and bought a keyboard, and that was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I started. What I really focused on was just honestly scales, chord. I did go to school. In college, I studied music, and so obviously I did have to play classical, and I was trained classically for voice. But it never really stuck until about 5 years ago when I got my keyboard and I started practicing chord progressions, the Nashville number system, memorizing that, being able to write charts. That was really what was important to me, because although I appreciate and respect classical music and I would love to be able to play a full classical piece, one day I feel like I knew for me it was going to make sense to, to learn chord progressions and learn how to write and read charts. So
yeah, well,
that's where I started about 5 years ago, and I continue to work through that.
Well, you mentioned that you're sort of in control of your own content, and I think partly being able to write your own songs is that ability to steer yourself in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah, exactly, and understanding musical theory and being able to, again, write your own songs and express yourself in that way. And the more you understand, the more you learn, the more opens up the musical language for you, so you can be creative with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like so many of the pop divas, I think, they basically, my perspective has always been that they're being told, these are the songs you're going to do. This is your look. This is, the style, here you go, so on and so forth. Like, it seems like there's very few pop, artists that can have control of their own content. And it's nice to hear that, you're steering yourself in the direction that you want to go, as I said. But I mean, you mentioned the authenticity and the honesty of country music as well. I mean, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, for a while, like I said, I was struggling with how I was going to present myself as an artist in the musical sense, because a lot of the people that I knew in LA were pop R&B. So a lot of the session work I was doing was pushing me more in that direction. I'd meet producers and they'd be like, oh, and not that wasn't cool. I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel like a full, well-rounded version of me. Like I could really reflect who I was from an authentic point of view for me. So when I started writing, just more about my life, which is that I've been married. I've been with my husband for 13 years. We have 2 children. We're living this life. It felt like, and also my dad's from Texas, and I always kind of had that twang. And I've always loved country music. Shania Twain, Keith Urban, Rascal Flatts were my favorite. It just, even though the lifestyle that I was living and the people that I was meeting here were trying to push me out of that, it always just felt like that was authentic to who I was. It was my background. And then when I started writing songs, the first song that I knew, like, this is going to be the song that I'm going to put out, and I just had a gut feeling about it, which was Feels Like Home, was me just talking about my family and my life and what matters to me. And that resonates with the country community, and that resonates with me, and that's true to who I am. So that's when I put that out, and that started getting radio play, and that started kind of moving me forward. That's when I was like, this is 100% where I need to be and what I need to be doing.
Right.
And that came, again, from not an outside place, but from a truly organic place. And so that's kind of how I landed there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing to hear that career trajectory and all of the different things that you had going early on. I mean, like just recently, maybe in the last 2 or 3 weeks, though, you did release a new single, Backseat Driver. What can you tell us about that one, Rachel?
Yeah, so Backseat Driver for me, originally, there's kind of 2 different meanings that you could get out of that song. Originally, I think upon listening to it, most people think that I'm talking about other people, which I think could be interpreted as, hey, don't patronize me. Don't assume I can't do something just because I'm a woman or just because I look a certain way or whatever. That basically I could do whatever I put my mind to. And I think a lot of people listen and hear that, which it definitely has that meaning. But when I did the music video, what I wanted to kind of capture, if you will, was these, maybe it comes from the outside or it comes from ourselves, but these limitations that we put on our own self and these things that we tell ourselves that we can or can't do, that hold us back. And for a long time, that's really where I felt in my life, especially in terms of music. I just kind of felt stuck and I didn't know what to do. And so there's like these 2 sides of me that I battle with, where like the independent, I can do it side of me, and the overly cautious, overly concerned about appearance, overly worried about what other people are going to think. And so the song was about, hey, I don't need that anymore. I just want to be a natural version of myself. I don't want to have to always worry all the time about how it's being presented. And I think growing up in LA and everybody kind of talking in my ear about what it meant to be an artist confused me for a long time. And as I get older, I realized what it truly means to be an artist. And so that's kind of where I was coming from, I think.
Sure.
There's two different ways to think about it, but that was Backseat Driver.
Right on. So the EP Feels Like Home was released October 5th. One song that really resonated with me is Take Me to the Trees. Again, Rachel, what can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, it's funny how that one there a lot of people come to me and say, oh, this song, I love Take Me to the Trees. And I think for me, it was basically about me sharing my story in a way of, especially living out here where I live now, all my neighbors are country folk. I wasn't raised in the country, and I can't change the way I was raised. I was raised right smack dab in the city, around the industry, but I think my heart always called to the life that I have now. And it's hard to explain that, but when you live in the country and you started as a city girl, people kind of underestimate you and they think, you can't do this or you can't do that. And Take Me to the Trees was really about, honestly, I find my peace in the life that I live now and being away from it all. It's just so noisy. And for me, that, I didn't grow up camping either. My parents really didn't take me camping. And then when I camped for the first time, I was like, this is awesome. I love it. So I think finding that for me was where I found peace of mind. And even after this phone call, I'm going to go on a ride. I'm going to go on a trail ride with my horse. And that to me is where I find calm amongst the craziness. And so that's really what that song was about, just sharing my story in that way.
Right on. Well, now when you write a song, I mean, where does it start for you? Does it start with the chords or, the lyrics or, what's your process there, Rachel?
Yeah. So a combination of lyrics and, chords. Usually it's funny because I collaborate a lot with writers, and it's always very interesting to collaborate with other creatives and understand their process. Mine is always usually I start by jamming. I come up with some type of progression. I start jamming to it. And then how does this make me feel? Or I'll have something specific I want to say and I'll write around that, right? So if I know I want to talk about a specific topic, then I'll start to build around that. But usually if I'm just messing around, practicing on the piano, and then I start working, a certain chord progression, I start to go, how does this make me feel? And I start writing. And as I started playing guitar as well this last, I would say in the summer, again, more seriously because I've played on and off. But my father-in-law gave me he gave me one of his Telecasters, which is epic. And so I started kind of messing around with that and learning like pentatonic scales and things. I still am not that great, but it's good enough to be able to write songs. And again, I'll start to practice my scales, and then I'll go off on a tangent and start, messing around, and then I'll come up with a song after that. So that's kind of my process. It usually starts with practicing, to be honest, and then I work on a song once I start messing around with progressions.
Right on. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I would be remiss if I didn't get you to throw down where the best places would be to find your music, and then also your lifestyle videos. So if you've got a few seconds to do that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So my lifestyle content is basically, my home life, and that's on youtube.com/Rachel Talbott. I also put my music videos on there as well. But yeah, that's where you can kind of find our life we have like a little micro farm and what we're kind of doing around the house and that. But my music you can find on Spotify, iTunes, pretty much anywhere that music is sold. And I'd say Spotify is probably nowadays, the main one. It's always helpful to follow and stream on Spotify. And so, yeah, that's where you can find me.
So I know it's a very unpredictable time right now, given the whole COVID-19 thing. But I mean, what do you see for yourself just in the near future? Like, after Backseat Driver and all of the excitement from that is settled. I mean, is there more to come?
Yeah, so I have a song Dreamcatcher right now that's kind of ready to go. But I'm just trying to wait on the right timing to release that, and, you know, just trying to be sensitive to what's going on right now. And so I haven't decided quite yet when that's going to be coming out, but Dreamcatcher is going to be my next one. And then I have kind of a song that's a little comical called Gone Fishing. That one, it's definitely, especially when I do live shows, that one gets the most laughs and people just enjoy it. And that one should be coming out again after Dreamcatcher. And then, yeah, I'm just going to continue to make music. You know, I'd love to do a full album, but it seems these days that singles are kind of the way to go. And so I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time. But yeah, that's what's up next, and we'll see. I'm just trying to kind of wait this all out, and you know, I have young kids and everything too, so I'm not in like a super rush. I'm just kind of living my life and making music when it makes sense. But yeah, 2 more singles definitely coming out in the next few months.
Right on, Rachel. Well, thanks very much, as we say on the show. Thanks for coming down to the river with me today. Much appreciated, and stay well and stay safe.
Awesome. You too. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Bye-bye.